Hello everyone and welcome to this complete beginner tutorial to making a simple RPG stage in Milliastra Wonderland. It's going to be easy to follow, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do after opening the editor is we want to make a little map for our game. So we can select the first option here, the terrain editing in the middle top, and we can select one of these brushes here. I'm going to select the first one, and we can also select the ramp. So I'm going to make a ramp, and we need to click on the terrain, and after clicking on the terrain we can go to the edge, maybe a little to the middle of the map, and let's make a little ramp here. Let's make maybe 3 blocks wide, and we can go to the first option now, and we can increase the size, so we can just click it and increase the height of our terrain, and that looks good, so we can close it for now. Actually, let's go back to it so I can click again. We can click on this fourth option here to create a path. So I'm going to create a path up here and all the way there, all the way to the end of the map, because this will be where our enemies can walk. So now I'm going to close it, and let's also add a little fence here, so we don't just leave the map. So what we want to do is we are going to search on custom, actually not on custom, on prefabricated on the left. We're going to go to static units, artificial decoration, and we're going to type fence. It's on building structure actually, so we are going to drag a fence onto our scene, and we want to click on edit object, and on this fence we want to disable climbing, so we are going to open native collision option, and we are going to uncheck climbing, and we we can move our fence. So the arrow is movement, the curved line is for rotating, and the box is for the scale or the size of our object. So we want to move, so we're going to click on the arrow and move it to the edge of the map. Now we want to duplicate this fence. So to duplicate it, we can hold Alt and move. So this way we duplicate it, but we need to do this a little faster. So we are going to hold click on one of the fences. We are going to hold Shift, and now we have both fences selected, and now we can hold Alt and move to copy it, and we are going to do the same thing, but now with 4 fences, and now it's going to be way faster. So let's do that until the map ends. Okay, now let's select all of the fences, so you can just move here, and we can hold Alt and drag to the other end. Now we have our playable area here. Let's just also make some fences to the side. So I'm gonna hold Alt, drag to copy, and I want, we could rotate like this, but it's not very precise, and I want a precise rotation, so I'm going to do Control and Z to go back and undo, and I'm going to click the middle option here on the middle, and I'm going to check rotate at fixed angle. So now we can have something more precise like this, and we can keep copying, keep copying. We might need to increase the size of this one, like so, and that looks good. And we also need to add same back there. So I'm going to copy these three. I'm going to drag it here. Okay. And can maybe make this not like this. We can increase the size a little bit. Okay, this looks good. And we also want to make so the player cannot leave, because here he could technically jump and leave. So just to make sure, we are going to go on to prefabricated dynamic units other, and we are going to create a invisible wall. So we drag this onto the map, we disable climbing, and we are going to drag the box here until it's like 50. So we can just change the Z to 50 here on the zoom, and we can place it at the edge here, maybe like so. Oops. We can increase the size, the height, I mean, and like so. So we can do the same thing. We can just copy. We can select both with shift. We can copy it. We can get one and rotate it. Make it a little smaller. All right. Now it looks good. So we can just make a new one here. Okay, so now we can hold Ctrl and press S to save our progress. There's a little gap here, but I don't think a player can pass. Let's just make sure. Okay, it looks good now. So the next thing we want to do is let's make a shop. So let's go to building. I'm going to find a fabric roof hut. I'm going to place here. I'm going to rotate it. And it is snapping a little bit. So if we're having problems with snapping like this, what we can do is we can go to this first option here, the up arrow, and we can enable movement stepping, and we can decrease it to as low as possible. So now you can see it doesn't snap anymore. So let's place our shop here. Let's also add some decorations. So let's go to decoration. I'll search for storage and add some storage here for shop. Maybe a box. Like so. Now let's add our vendor. So to do that, let's minimize all of this. We are going to prefabricated creations, basic creations. Let's clear the search here. And we want to find something that could be our vendor. It could be anything you want. And the same goes for the map. It doesn't have to be like mine. So I'm going to select a treasure hoarder. I'm going to place him here. And okay, that is good. And I'm also going to select another treasure hoarder. And this one is going to be our guard. So we can rotate him. And we also need an enemy and an objective. So our enemy, it's going to be this dragon here. So let's drag a dragon and place him right here. And we need an objective, so could be, we could do an object or an enemy. Let's just do an object. And let's maybe search for a ley line. And you see that the ley line, it's under gameplay mechanism. And the objects under gameplay mechanism, some of them, they have a special a special state, which is a preset status. And so if you click on the preset status and change from 0 to 1, you can see they are gonna do something. In this case, it just goes up. So we can drag this here, set climbable to off, and drag this a little to here. So now we have everyone that's going to be in your game. And let's start setting up each one of these individually. So the first one we are going to set up is going to be our vendor. So I'm going to change his name from treasure holder to vendor. You can just click on the name to change it. And I'm going to go to the third option and add a few components. So we need a way to interact with our vendor. So we are going to add a tab. So now we have this tab here that we can interact with. And we need a nameplate so we can see that he is the vendor from far away. And we also need a shop, which is the shop we open when we interact with him. So let's set up each one of these. So click on the tab, Advanced Editing, and click on the Name tab. Let's change it to Open Shop. And we can also click on the icon and change this icon here. And you see a blue box on our treasure holder. And this is the area that we need to be in to interact with this tab. So if we are inside this area, the open shop will appear. And if we're not, it is not going to show up. So let's go to trigger options area. We are going to go to sphere. And we are increasing the size to 2.5. So now we have a nicer area to interact with the shop. Let's go to nameplate. We are going to advanced editing, add. Here we have a few parameters. We are going to change the select attach point to be his nameplate. We are going to say the visible radius to be 30 meters. And here on the nameplate content, we can add a text. So let's say treasure shop. And let's go to the alignment and let's align it to the middle option on both vertically and horizontally. And it's on top of his head right now, so we need to go to offset and add a little bit on the Y. So let's add 30 on the Y. And we cannot see the whole treasure shop name, so we need to increase the size to 200. Now we can see it. And we also need a icon for our shop. So we are going to go to add content. We are going to change from text to icon. Let's select a icon that looks like a shop here. And after you do that, we also need to make it a little higher up. So let's do maybe 50 instead of 60. And now you can see our treasure shop looks good. So we can close it. Now we need to set up our shop. So we are going to go to advanced editing. We are going to name our shop treasure shop. And it's asking us for a shop template. And we are going to click on it. And we haven't made one yet. So let's do that. Open shop template management. New shop template. Let's name our shop template. Treasure shop template. And here we have a few options. So the first one is the tabs in the shop. We can have the default ones, which is equip, consumable, materials, and special item. We can have our custom ones, which is any one we set up. And we can have no tab. For my case, I'm going to have no tab on the shop. Here on the sales settings is the items that we want to have on the shop. It could be a self inventory, which would be the inventory on our treasure holder, or it could be a custom list. And the same goes for the items that the treasure shop can purchase, which would be not purchasable, all items, or only select items. I'm going to leave it at all items. And since we haven't made any items yet or currency, we are going to come back to this later. So we can close it and we can save it. And now we need a way to connect all these together, the tab and the shop. Because right now we have a way to interact with him, but we don't say to open the shop when we click this tab. So we need to do that. And for that, we are going to add a node graph to him. So we're going to go into the fourth option here. And we are going to open our server node graph explorer. And here we can see node graphs for entities, for status, for classes, or for items. And we need to make a node graph for an entity, which is our treasure holder. So we are going to open here, and we are going to say new node graph, right click and say new node graph. We are going to call it treasure hoarder. Actually, we're going to call it treasure shop graph. We can press enter, we can open it, and we want to do something when the tab is selected, which is the interaction. So when tab is selected, and what you want to do when the tab is selected is we want to open the shop. And right here, open shop. And the player entity that we are opening the shop is the selector entity, but the selector entity is a character, not a player. So what we need to do is we need to drag from selector, and we need to say get player entity to which the character belongs. So we are entering the player that is the owner of our character, and we are going to connect to player entity. And the shop owner is the event source entity, which is the owner of this tab. So we are going to connect this to the shop owner. And the shop ID, we can go back and look for the shop ID. We go to our vendor, the third tab, and we can see that it says shop ID 1 since we only have one shop. But if we had more, it could be a different number. So we can go back to the node graph, and we need to add this logic we just created to our vendor. So we go add node graph, we select the treasure shop graph, and now if we interact with him, we can open our shop. The second one we want to set up is our treasure hoarder, and for him we need to first set up his faction. So let's make some factions for our game. So we are going to the top left, we're going to stay settings, and we are going to faction, and we want to create a new faction, which is going to be the guards faction. And we also need to create one more faction, which is the dragon faction. So we can just name it like so. And we need to change the initial object faction to friendly objects faction. And now we are going to set up the faction relations for each of these factions. So we're going to go to the player and click on faction relations. And I want the player to be friendly to everyone, but I want the player to be able to attack the dragon, but the dragon to not be able to attack the player. So this is good. Let's set up the friendly objects. They are going to be friendly to everyone. The creations faction, they're actually the guards faction, so I can delete these creations factions, and I can change the default to the guards faction. Oops. Here. oops, we can just select creations for the guards to be the default faction for creations. And here we can select the guards relation, and it's already correct. They are hostile to the dragon, and the dragon is hostile to them. And for the dragon faction, it is also correct. So we can close everything, can minimize, we can do Ctrl S, and let's start setting up our guard. So the guard is going to be guard faction, and since we create the factions, our vendor, he also needs a faction, which is going to be the objects faction, because he doesn't interact with anyone, so we just leave him with the objects faction. And for our guards, we need to click on the sword here, and let's increase his base attributes a little bit, so maybe 50 health. And we also need to change his not in battle behavior to patrolling, and we need to go into the edit details in the bottom, and we need to go edit details again. We need to add a patrol template. We need to say initially effective, and it's going to ask us for a patrol path. So we can click to select here. We can open path management tool, and we can click on create path. It's going to create one here and select. So we can just move it to the target area we want our guards to go. And I want them to go to the dragon location, so about here. And we can rotate it, and we can also rename it. So let's right click on the left, rename it, and say guards path. And then we can close it and save it, and we can go back to our guard. And now we can select this guard's path. And here it's going to have a few options. We want him to run instead of walk, and have a arrival detection radius of maybe 1, and a stay time of 15 seconds. It doesn't really matter, so we can just save it now. And we also need to go to combat, and his range sounds good for this map. So let's just change the living battle delay and the territory living battle delay to 20. Just so nothing weird happens and he leaves the battle or he resets his HP. And for now, we also want to add a component to our guard, which is going to be a trophy. And we are going to advanced editing. And here we can set up the guard to drop some gold when he dies. But we haven't made any gold yet, so let's do that now. We're going to go into the top left, currency and inventory, and let's create a currency. So let's add currency. We are going to select the coin icon. I'm going to double click the create currency name and change it to gold. And it's asking us for a loot appearance. So we are going to have to create a loot. So let's go to the box icon here, the third tab. We are going onto the top left and to the third option. We are going to go to preset loot category, and we are going to drag this coin. And the coin also has a special preset status, so we can set 1 for it to spin. And we can go onto the loot option area here. We can add items, so we can say that each of these coins is 1 gold, so we can do that. And we don't need to change the pickup range. What we need to do is we need to do auto attract pickup instead of interactive pickup. So instead of us interacting with the loot is just going to fly to us and it's going to automatically be picked up. So we need to set up a range after selecting. So I'm going to say 15. So if I'm within this sphere here, the loot's going to fly towards us. And that looks good. So I can just click on save. We can rename it to gold loot and we can confirm. And then we can go to the top left, currency and inventory, and we can select the loot we just created and we can save it. And let's save it again. And now if we go to our treasure hoarder, we go back to his trophy component and we go advanced editing. And now we can add gold. So I'm going to add 3 gold for each treasure hoarder. And we could do for all the gold to be combined into a single one, or we could have multiple. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave individual drops. So we are going to see 3 loot coins for each treasure hoarder that dies, each quart. And we can share the reward, means that if this was a multiplayer game, only one player would be able to pick up the item, while individualized means all the players would be able to pick up the item. But this doesn't matter since this is a single player game. And now we can right click on our guard and we can click on save as a prefab, and we are going to name him guard because we need to spawn guards dynamically. So we can just save it now. And the next one we are going to set up is our objective, which is our ley line. And our ley line, it needs to be on the guards faction. The ley line also needs a Hurtbox, so we are going to the second option here, and we're going to advanced editing and add a Hurtbox. Click add Hurtbox, and we want it to be it can be a cube actually, so let's just increase the size a little bit. And we are also going to increase the height, maybe like so, maybe like so. So a Hurtbox is basically a hitbox, and objects don't have it by default. So if you want an enemy to be able to do damage to an object, you need to add a Hurtbox. And you also need to go to basic battle attributes at the top, and you need to uncheck invincible. And let's maybe add a little more HP to it. So let's do maybe 4000 HP. Maybe it's good. And let's also add a nameplate to this so we can see the health of the object, since enemies, objects by default don't have a health bar. So what you're going to do is we are going to go to add common component, and we need to add a attachment point because objects also don't have a nameplate attachment point. So let's go to advanced editing on the custom attachment point, and we can click on add. We can click on the name and name it nameplate, and we can drag it on top of it, and that's good. Now we can add another component, which is going to be our nameplate. We can add it, and we can, let's set the visible radius to be very big, so maybe 30. We can select attach point to be nameplate that we just created. We can, and we need to change the size to be, actually we need to change from text box to HP and shield. So now it's going to show our HP. and we need to increase the size a little bit. So let's change the width to 200 and the height to maybe 30. Actually, let's increase the width to 300 and the height to 35. And we can change the progress bar color to something else, but I think I'm just going to leave it at green. And that looks good. We could maybe add an icon, so let's add that. So let's click add content icon. We can increase the size of the icon to 64. We can also make, let's try to find a shield or something that we need to protect. Maybe objective icon. Let's see. Maybe this one here. So I'll go with this one. Actually, this one looks better. So I'm going to make it be a little higher than our health bar. So maybe 45, 60. Okay, 60 looks good. And that should be all for our ley line. We could have a heat effect here. So we can also do that. So for a heat effect, let's just click on heat and try to find an effect here. I think the first one is good. And we can also decrease the size, so maybe 0.5. Okay, that's good. Maybe 0.3. This is better. So now it's going to play this effect when it's hit. So we can now press Ctrl S and save, and we can right click and save as a prefab, and we can leave the default name. And now we need to set up our dragon. So we need to first change its faction to be the dragon faction, and we need to change its HP. Let's maybe make the dragon have maybe 1500 HP, and we can maybe, we also need to add a path for the dragon to follow. Let's actually make a little more HP, maybe 3000 HP for our dragon. And now let's change his not in battle behavior in the standard settings to patrolling. And now we can do the same thing we did for the guards. So we can go to edit details, add patrol. We can select a patrol path, and we can open the path management too. And here we can create a new path, and we can drag it all the way to our objective. It's like so. And we need to check initially effective to be on by default. We need to rename our path to be dragon path. And we need to select the path we just created. And we need a stay time of 15 and a arrival detection radius. We can just leave it at 1. And we can do actually, let me just double check our guards are also initially effective. It is. So let's go back to our dragon. And we need also to increase our radius a little bit. So let's make it like 16. Let's maybe make him leave battle to 30 just so it doesn't bug out for some reason. We can leave the rest to default. And we can save our dragon now. So let's right click, save as a prefab. Let's name him dragon. And right now, we need to add a way for our player to earn gold and purchase the items and also the items. So let's start setting up our player. So we are going to go to the 4th tab here. And one thing I forgot to mention is that before doing this, we should probably go to our class here below the player template. And here we can set up our character class. So here we can select our maximum level. We have all sorts of settings. We could also have default skills and other stuff. But the most important one here is that we could change our base attack. We could change our base defense. So I'm just going to make it 400. The health doesn't really matter in this game, so it can be 100, doesn't matter. And we could have a level up XP formula here. So we could have different XP needed to level up per level, or just a set formula. So it could be just 0 plus 500. And the most important thing you need to change here is your attribute growth. Without this, when you level up, your attributes won't change. So what you want to do is set it to default growth curve. And now here we can preview the values and we can see that our attributes will grow as we level up. And so we can close it and go back to where we were. And here we can allow our player to revive, but since this game doesn't have a death, we can just leave everything as it is for now. We can select his starting level. We can maybe make other player classes here or character classes. And what we want to do for our character, so we are going to go to edit character on the 3rd tab, and we are going to add components to our character and add component. And what we want to add to our character is a inventory and the equipment slot. So we're going to click on both of this, and it's going to ask us to select a template. So we can click this and select an inventory template, but we haven't created a equipment template, and we haven't created the inventory either. It's just there by default. So we can click on Open Equipment Slot Template Editor. And here we are going to start with the inventory. So for our inventory, we want to have the max slots to 30 or any value you want, it doesn't matter. And here, what do we do when the player dies? So we could make all his items a loot, we could destroy all the items, or we could just save it. And the items are saved for when he's respawned. I want to destroy everything and forget about it. And let's also add a equipment slot. So I'm going to add this. And I'm going to click on this plus icon. And this slot is going to be our weapon slot. So I'm going to call it weapon slot. And it's asking us for equipable types. And we have not created equipable types here. So let's create it. And here it's going to open the manage equipment data, and we're going to type, and we're going to add type. And the first type we want to add is maybe a sword. And the second type we are going to add is maybe fists. And actually, let's double click the name here on the top and rename it to gloves. Actually, it needs to be fists because gloves could be literally gloves. So let's just have it be as fists. And since we are here, let's also create an affix for our sword. So let's go to affixes, add affix, and let's name it flame sword attack. And here we can do effective when equipped on the effective timing. Attribute bonus is fine. and we want it to give bonus attack when we equip it. And we can have a correction value, which is a flat value, or we can have a adjustment rate, which is a percentage value. I want it to be a adjustment rate, and I want it to be of 100. Actually, that might be too much, so let's just do 10% more attack. And that's good for our flame sword affix. So we can minimize this. And now we can select the equipable types, fists and sword, to be on our weapon. So now we can equip fists and sword on our weapon slot. So now we can close this, and we can select the equipment slot that we just created on our equipment slot. We can save it. And now we need to create some items and some skills. So let's go back here. Let's go. Actually, it is in the same place we were. So we can go to the last option here, and here we can create a few items. So the first item I'm going to create is going to be our flame sword. I'm going to select a flame sword icon. I'm going to call it flame sword. And on the type, it is important that we select equip. And the quality, we want it to be orange. We can confirm create, and we can Ctrl S to save it. So the next item we are going to create is going to be a fists, which is going to be our base weapon. So we are going to find the gloves icon. We are going to go to equip, and we are going to go to maybe make it orange. It doesn't matter, and we are going to call it gloves, and we can confirm create. And we are going to need 2 more items, and one is going to be the higher guards item. So let's select any icon and name it higher guards. It can be purple. It's not an equipment, it's a normal item. And the next item is going to be it can be a meat. It doesn't really matter. They're going to call it level up meat exclamation point. It's going to be purple, a normal item. So let's start for the more simple items, which is going to be our meat. So for all these items, we need a loot for this item, just like we have one for our coin. So what we can do is we can go back to the third option, the prefab library, and we can duplicate our gold loot. And here we can click on the challenge coin loot main object model, and we can select for empty other empty model. We can make it way smaller, so let's just decrease its size a little bit. And for this, we want to go to the loot options, and we don't want it to be an auto attract pickup. We want it to be a interactive pickup. So it's gonna have this size right here. So we want it to be bigger. We also don't want it to have a loot coin. So let's delete it. And let's change it from a cube to a sphere on the pickup range. And let's increase the size to be like 4, maybe. Yeah, 4 sounds good. And we can close this. Let's also add a VFX. So we can go to the VFX plane, advanced editing, add the VFX at the bottom. We need to change it from timed effects to looping effects. And here we can find a looping effect that could be our loot. So maybe colorful. I know one here. That could be our loot, but if you search here, there's lots of good ones for loot. I just don't remember the name. And let's change the size to 3. Okay, this looks good for me. And we can now rename this. So we can click at the name at the top right. We can name this base loot. And we can save as a prefab on the middle and confirm. And now what we want to do now is we want to go back to our items. And now for each one of these, we are going to set up with that loot we just created. So let's go for every single one. Select base loot. And now we need to add a description and a currency value. So let's add a description. Flame, 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 a flame sword. Okay. Flame sword, it burns enemies attacked by it. And for the gloves, simple gloves. Hires a guard to fight for you. And for the meat, increases your level by 2. So it gives 2 levels for each meat. So we can now save each one of these items. And for the currency value, so let's add a currency value to our flame sword. This currency value is going to be our sell price. So we want it to be, we can sell it for 30 maybe. And for the gloves, we don't have a currency value to it. For the higher guards, we can sell it for 20, maybe 15. The level of meat, we can maybe sell it for 20, which is going to be the same price we buy, except for the sword. And now we can change the interaction settings, and we can also add a logic code for our items. So let's start with the interaction settings. Here on our equipment, it's going to ask for a equipment type. I'm going to say that this is a sword. And here I can also add an affix to our sword. So I'm going to add that flame sword attack. So now it gives 10% bonus attack. And for the gloves, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to say fists, save. For the higher guards, it is set as a material and it is a consumable. So I'm going to change to consumable. The same thing for the level of meat. And in the interaction settings, I want it to be usable. I don't want to allow book use on the higher guards, so I can only use one at once. And I don't want cooldown, so just leave it at 0. I don't want to auto use it when I pick it up. So now for the level of meat, we can allow book use. Yes, we want it the cooldown to be 0, and we do not want to auto use it, but we could, which is probably a good thing. But just for the tutorial, we are going to have it as not an auto use. And now we need to create the logic for all our items. So let's start with the meat. So we are going to go to our editor. We are going to find item node graph. We are going to open it, and we are going to create an item node graph for our meat. So we are going to create meat item graph. And let's open it. Let's also create for the other items. So we just have this. So higher guard graph, and one for the east graph, and another one for the flame sword graph. So we can open all of them and we can close the treasure one. Let's start with the meat one. So we want to do something when the item is equipped, and so we can search for that. Item is equipped. Actually not equipped. we want to do something when it's used because it's not an equipment. So we can search for used here when inventory item is used. And what we need to do first is we need to get the config ID of the item. And we need to type equal. And here we want to check if this item is the one we want. So we go back to our level meet, and at the top right there is a configuration ID. We can click this icon to copy this value, and we can do Ctrl V to paste it at input 2. And now we only want to do something if it is equal. So we are going to click on a branch, search for double branch, and now it's only going to do something if the condition of this being equal is yes. So we can drag from yes, and we want to increase the level by 2. So we are going to search for level, change player class current level, and we are going to say yes, we want to change, and we want to drag from the item owner, so the one who used the item, and we want to say get character attribute, and we're going to get this level here, and we want to add here we're going to add the amount used, but since it is 2 levels for each one that is used, we want to multiply it by 2. So we are going to amount used times 2, and we are going to add. So if we use 10 at a time, it's going to give us 20 levels, and we can connect this, and we need to a target player, and the item owner, if you remember, it is a character. So this, if we drag this here, it will not work. So what we need to do is we need to say get player to which this character belongs. Here, get player entity to which the character belongs, and we can connect this, and we can press Ctrl S to save, and our meet item is complete. We just need to go back to it and associate item node graph, and we need to add this logic to it. So we just add it. And for our higher guards, we need to do the same thing. So we are going to open the meet one again, and we're going to copy, we're going to hold the left mouse button and drag just this first part here to select all 3, or we can do with shift the same as in the editor to select multiple objects. And we're going to go down to the higher guard, and we can paste it just so it's a little faster. And we need also to get the higher guard's ID. So the same thing, we go to the top left, right, and copy it, and we can save this. And what we want to do when we use it is we want to create a prefab, and it's asking for a prefab ID, and we can get that ID on the 3rd tab here, and we need to search for our guard. So let's go to dynamic. Where is it? It is going to be on the left here under creation prefabs, and so we can open our guard here, when we can open our dragon tool, and we can click on our guard when we can copy this prefab ID at the top right. So we copy it, can go back, and we can paste it. And the location that we want to spawn our guards, it's going to be right here where this guard is. So we can either copy this location, or we can create a preset point. So we can go to the top left here, and we can search for preset point management, And there will be one here by default, which is our spawn. So we can rename this one to spawn. So click on it, and on the top right, we click on the name and say spawn point. And we click on the bottom left to create preset point, and we are going to name it guard spawn. And it's going to be under the map here. You can just drag, and we can rotate a little bit. Actually, let's do fixed rotation, -90. All right, let's just move this a little bit here. All right, so now we have our guard spawn preset point. We can go back to our item, and to get the location of that point, we can say query preset point location, and we can drag the location and the rotation to the location rotation. And for the point index, we can click on this search here icon, and we can say guard spawn. And for override level, we are going to check yes. And the level that we want our guard to be is the same level as our player. So we can drag from the item owner entity, which is not our player, our character. And we can say character attribute. So we are going to get the level of our character, and it's going to be the same actually. Let's multiply it by 2, so our guards is a little bit stronger. So our guards is going to be the level of the player times 2. So we can save this, and we can add this logic to our new item. So let's go to our higher guards, and we can go to the associated item node graph, and we can do the higher guard graph. Oops, now we can save it. And now we need to add the gloves, and we need to add a flame sword. So before we start on the gloves, let's go back to where we created our inventory. So edit player, edit character. We are going to go to our inventory template, and here we can go to advanced editing, and we are going to add an item to our inventory by default, which is going to be these gloves. And it doesn't need to be an item. We could just add this skill by default to our player and remove it when we equip a sword. But I'm going to do this for now, and we can change it later. So let's just save this. And we need to create our fist combo and our sword combo. So let's start with that. So we're going to go to the third option on the left, and we are going to add 2 preset skills, which is already made skills from the game. So we are going to add a sword combo, and we are going to name this flame sword combo. We're going to go to preset skills again, and we are going to find our boxing combo, and we are going to call, we can leave it as boxing combo. And here, when you select a skill or when you create a new one, we have lots of options here. So we can have an instant skill, which doesn't have an animation, a hold skill, which it's cancel when you stop holding, a normal skill, which is just one animation, and a combo skill, which is a skill that can basically attack combo, so you can transition from one animation to another. And then aiming skill is just aiming something. So for a boxing combo, it is a combo skill. Here we have options, we have cooldown options, we have the targeting range to find our enemy, so we can see it's very big here. So on the end, if you click on the animation editor, we are not going to get too much into that on this video, but on the top here is our animations for our combos. So we have 3 animations. This gold part is the combo track, which is when we can transition from each animation. The purple one is events that we can trigger during the specific parts of the animation. So when this one starts, it's going to trigger the turn towards target, which turns us toward our enemy, and maybe snaps a little bit. And the second one here, it's the hitbox. So it turns, then it triggers the hitbox and the effects. And here is allow interruption. So we allow during this first green area, we allow it to be cancelled by movement only. But if we see at this allow other section here, we always allow the combo to be cancelled by sprint, jump, or glide. So we can now close this. We can go to our flame sword, and we need to change something on our flame sword, which is the swords have a VFX plane whenever you attack it with it. But I want you to always have the sword effect when the sword is equipped, not only when you attack. So we can right click the weapon model here on the left and select delete tag, and we can, there's also a mistake here on the sword, so we can click the allow other interruption tab, we can click on here and we can allow sprint, so we can now always cancel the sword combo with the sprint. And by default, this sword combo and any other preset, they are set up so it hits allies and enemies alike. And we only want to hit enemies, so we are going to our editor. We can close our higher guards, and here we can see that there is no skill node graph. So we need to go to window at the top left. We need to go to client node graph, and we need to go to skill node graph. And here we have all the skills that were automatically created with our boxing combo and our sword combo. So I think let's just make a flame sword folder. So you can right click and create a folder. And we are going to name the flaming sword and the boxing combo. And now we can select all the boxing ones with shift, the same, and drag it. And the same thing with the sword, we can select all with shift hold, and we can drag it to the flame sword combo. And here we are going to open all of our sword combo, and we are also going to open all of our boxing combo. And we can close this for now. And here on our sword, you can see there's two yellow graphs here. One is the effects that plays when this event is triggered, and the second one, the first one actually, it is the hitbox that is triggering to damage enemies. And here we can see that the target faction filter, it is all except self, so we need to change it to hostile. And here we could also change the size of the hitbox, the damage, we could change the elemental type, and the effects that plays when the enemy is hit. But for now, we just want to change the hostile faction, so we can Ctrl S to save, and we can go to the other tabs, we can save. We need to do this for each one, so we change, then save. All right. And now that we did this, we can start adding our logic to our fists and to our flame sword. So let's start with our fists. So we need to do something when it is equipped. So let's search equipped. When equipment is equipped, and we need to do something when it is unequipped. So let's search for unequipped. And when the fist is equipped, we want to add a skill, which is the boxing combo. And when it's unequipped, we want to remove a skill, which is our boxing combo. So remove skill. Let's just search for skill. delete character skill by ID. And we can connect both of these. For equipments, we don't need to check if it's equal, so we can just do this directly. And for the target entity, we can connect for both the equipment owner entity, which is our character, and for the skill slot on the add, we want it to be our normal attack. Let's save it and let's go get our skill config ID. So we can go to our our boxing combo skill. We can go to the top right and click the icon to copy. And now we can paste this with Ctrl V. And this should be it for our fists. So we can copy this logic, Ctrl C, and we can paste it under our sword. And so for the sword, we need to get our sword ID. So let's copy it and replace the fist ID with our sword ID. And for the sword, we also want to add our sword model. So it's going to be a mount loop special effect. And when it's unequipped, we want to clear loop special effect. So clear effect. Let's search clear effect. Clear looping special effect. Then we can connect it. The target, the same thing, our equipment owner. And now we need a special effect asset. So we can go to our player. We can go to edit character, the third option. We can search for VFX plane, advanced editing. We can go to add VFX. We can change from timed to looping. And here we are going to search for our sword. So let's search for, actually, let's move closer to the character. And let's search for sword. And let's try to find the same model of the sword that is our flame sword. So I think it's sword 3. So you can select it. And here we also need to check our attachment point. So here you can see all the attachment points the player has, the character. And we want it to be the hand R. So we need to remember this name. So it's GY underline hand R. And let's preview it. And we can see that it looks good. So now we can delete this effect and we can close this. And let's search for sword 3 on our flame sword graph on the special asset. And here we can copy this special effect asset and we can paste it on the clear. And here we can set the attachment point name to be GY underline hand R. And the rest we can just leave the offset at 0 and the zoom multiplier at 1. So now it is saved. And now we can go to our items. Let's go back to our item tab, the last one. And let's add our fists graph and save it. Let's add our sword graph and save it. Name sword graph. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is we want to get gold when our dragon is attacked. So we need to, so we need to add a graph to our dragon. So let's do that. Let's go to our dragon here, this one, and let's create a graph for him. So entity node graph, we're going to create a dragon graph. And whenever this dragon is attacked, so we are going to search for attacked. I want to get all the players on the field. So get all players. No. And get list of players, maybe. Get list of player entities on the field. So we are going to get all the players that are on the field. And since this is a single player game, we want to only to get the first value on the list, the first ID. So we are going to search get corresponding value from the list, and list IDs they start at 0, so it's not going to be 1, it's going to be 0, the first value. And we want to do something with our player, so we want to modify currency. And let's just search for currency. Modify currency quantity, and we are going to connect it. And the change value, we want to let's give our player 2 gold per hit. And we need the currency config ID, which we can get by going to the top left, currency and inventory, and we can copy the currency config ID here. And we can do Ctrl S to save. And we need to add this graph to our dragon. So let's go to details on the top right, go to the last option, add node graph, and we can add it. And for it to update our dragon on the scene, we need to go to overwrite and save prefab. And now let's check our dragon on the scene. He has the graph we just added, which is great. And now we need to update our currency in our UI and also add these items to our vendor. So let's go to our shop template management. So let's close everything else. And here we can open the shop template management tab. And let's go to sales settings and let's add all the items we want to sell. So we want to sell flame sword, we want to sell higher guards and level up back meat. And the price of the sword, I'm going to make it 50, maybe 60. I'm gonna make the sword limited, so there's only one sword on the shop. Actually, let's make it not limited. And the same for everything else. So nothing is limited. And that's all. Now our shop has these items that we can buy. And let's make the logic to update our currency in our UI. We are going to go to the top left. We're going to search for manage UI control groups. And here, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to click on this minimap. We're going to disable the minimap. We're going to click on the score here at the right. You're also going to disable the score. And that's all for now. And here we are going to click on the bottom left and we are going to say add UI control. So after adding our text UI, we are going to click on it and drag to the top like this in place of our map. And on the text content, we are going to say gold. And it's looking a little plain right now, so let's go to the font size, maybe increase it to a big font. And let's also add some color to it. So to add color, we can go before our text and we're going to type less than color equal. And then here we can say the code or the color that you want. So I'm going to say yellow and we can close it with a greater than. And after the gold text, we can say less than. We can say dash color and we can close it with a greater than. And now you can see that the text is yellow. And after this, we need to insert a variable which is going to be our text amount. So we need to create a variable because we want it to update as the coin updates. So as our currency updates, we want this variable to update and it's also going to update on the UI. So let's minimize our UI here. Let's go back to our player. Here on edit player, we need to add a variable, which is a value that we can store and modify within our player. And here there are many types. So there is a string, which is just text, an integer, which is an integral number, a floating point number, and a boolean, which is just yes or no. and we want to store a integral number, so an integer. Let's add it. Let's call it gold amount, so let's just rename that. And for now we can save and go back, and now we can go to the end of this text and we can insert variable, and we can search for player then self, and we can add gold amount, and this is our gold amount, and we need a way to update it. But before that, we need to set up this text for all possible screen types. So we are going to go onto this waypoint settings, and here you need to click on the one that is closest to where your text is, and so mine is top left, and we are going to do this for all devices. So on the device option here, we're going to click on the second device. We need to drag the text to the same position. We need to do the same thing, top left, and the same one for all devices. All right, so one more. We do the same thing, and we can leave this place. So now we are going to update our text. So we need to add a node graph variable to our character, because it is our character that receives the coin. So let's create a node graph here. We are going so let's create a node graph. We are going to create a new graph. We are going to call it character graph. We're going to open it. We can close our sword graph, and we can also close the dragon graph. And we want to do something when the currency changes. So let's type currency. When the quantity of inventory currency changes. So since there's only one currency in our game, we don't need to check the ID of the currency. What we want to do is we want to get the currency owner, which is ourselves, our character, and we want to get the player to which, let's see, get player entity to which this character belongs. And since our variable is on our player, because to be on the UI, it has to be either on the player or on the stage entity. And we are going to get our custom variable, because we need to know how much coin it is right now. And we need to say set custom variable. There's probably a node to get how much currency you have instead of like this. Would be maybe get all inventory currency, but this gets all types, so let's just do this, which is easier. And let's go back to our player. Let's see the name we set. It is gold amount. And so let's paste this into variable name, and we need to click on the cogwheel here because we need to specify which type it is. And so we set it as an integer. It has to be integer here, and the same thing for the set custom variable. So it is an integer, and the name is gold amount. Let's connect the when inventory currency changes to the set, and the set value, it is the currency change value. So we add, actually it's going to be how much gold we have plus the currency change value. So whether it is adding or subtracting, it's just gonna add that, and it's going to work. So we can connect the result to the variable value, and we can Ctrl S to save. And we need to add that to our character. So let's go to edit character, the last option here on the node graph, and we can find our character graph. Alright, so it updates. So now we need only two final things: a way for the game to end and to fix our settings so everything works. So we need to fix our stage settings because it wouldn't work yet. So let's first make a way for the game to end. So and we also forgot something, which is our spawn point. So if you go to the middle of our stage, there's going to be our spawn point here, and we need to change its position. So let's drag it, and we can make so we spawn here close to our vendor. And that sounds good for me. And now let's make a way to end the stage. So we can go to our stage entity, and we need to create a new node graph. So let's go back. We are going to create a stage graph. Let's name it. And right now we are going to use an event which is only available on the stage entity, which is when entity is destroyed. So it's only gonna work on this blue stage entity here. So let's add this node graph we just created to our stage entity. Let's save. Let's go back there. When entity is destroyed, we have a limited information of the entity, but we don't know we don't have much details so we can know if it's the dragon or if it's the ley line. And to do that, we are going to add a variable to both the dragon and the ley line. So we are going to go to the same thing we did on the player, custom variable, advanced editing. It is also going to be an integer, and we are going to call it the same name, which is going to be int special ID. And the special ID of the dragon, we can leave it at 1. It cannot be 0, so let's just leave it at 1. And for our ley line, we need to go to our object prefab and search custom, and we can find our ley line here. We are going to do the same thing. So let's go back to our dragon. Let's get this custom variable. We can click on the top right here and copy. And we can go to our ley line and we can paste it. And now it has the same name, the same value. So we need the value for the ley line to be 2. And we can overwrite and save both of them. We need to do that. So now if we go back to our normal map, we can see that the ley line has a variable. The dragon also has a variable. And let's copy the name of that variable so we can use it without making mistakes. And here we need to get that variable. So we're going to get a custom variable snapshot, which is the value that it had when it was destroyed. And we need to specify it that it is an integer. So click the cogwheel here, integer. And we need to do something based on its value. So it could be multiple values. So we are using a multiple branches. And if you remember the IDs, we have the ID 1 and the ID 2. Let's just double check. Yes. And we could do different things. For example, we could complete the game if it's dragon, but bring a retry deck selector if it's the ley line. But for now, we are just going to settle stage, which is completing our stage. For this tutorial at least, but we could improve that. And we can close this. We can save it. And one last thing we can do before we go to our final settings is we could change our camera settings here. So we can go to the top left, manage main camera, and we could change our camera to be a first person camera or a third person camera. I'm just going to leave the default camera, but you can do that if you want. And we can also search for, actually in the middle here on our terrain, we can search for environment configuration. And here it's going to open up our environment configuration. And on the right, we can select the effective player to be all players. We can set auto switch with time to off, so our game is going to be on a set point. It won't change based on how much time the player has been playing. And I want this to be 14. And here we can change many options like the intensity of the light. We can change the light color, so maybe you can have our game to be blue. We can have a filter. We can have a sky background color. We can have a galaxy. So if you look up there, there's a galaxy. We can have stars, but they are only visible at night. We can have clouds. We can do a lot of things. We can also go to the third option on the top, go to edit details, and we can also add a fog. We can set it to initially effective. Again, this is just showing that you can do it. You don't need any of this for the game to work. So you can just change the size a little bit. And you can also have different fog colors. There's a lot you can play around with. So now we can save this and we can go to our stage settings. We go to the top left and top left again. And here we need to set up a few things. So if we were to play right now, it would give us an error probably, because our stage might be a little bigger than 100 by 100. I'm not sure, and maybe not, but just to be safe, I will change it to 500 by 500. And so if you get an error, you can change it here. The second thing we need to change is the current number of permitted players. So this is a single player game, so I'm going to say fixed player count instead of custom. It's going to be 1. We could change the loading screen here, so you could add an image, you could add a title. We could have some settlement settings here, so this is more for multiplayer games. And we could add more respawn points, but I think this is it. The last thing we need to do is we need to go to terrain navigation, and we need to render the NavMesh, because if we don't do that, the enemies don't know where the playable area is. They don't know where they can use their abilities. So we need to render our map. So we're going to click Start Rendering and Start after saving. And now we can test our game. So let's save. Let's go to the top left. We can go, actually, one thing we forgot is some music. So we can search for background music. Let's search here, background music. And here you can select any music you want. So let's search for cool music. I like this first one. And we can check loop playback on. So the music loops if it ends. And we can save it. And now we can go to the top. We can search for test play. And let's just render it again, just to be safe, that the enemies will walk and cast their abilities normally. And let's do a direct upload. And it says an error in the shop. The shop template has an error, so let's go to our vendor. Let's open the details on our vendor. Oops. Let's see. Oh, this is because we forgot to set up a shop template on our vendor. So let's go to our vendor, to his shop, and let's select a shop template on the vendor. And now we can save it, and the error should be gone. Yes. So here we have a few options like enable display, test settlement. I'm gonna turn them off. And I want to play as my mannequin. And let's start the game. So our guard is moving there to the dragon. I forgot to add more guards, but that's fine. Let's get our gloves. We have our shop here with all the items. Let's see if the... Well, that's something we have to fix. We can actually fall off the map and be stuck. So let's just equip this. Let's start attacking our dragon. And our gold is not increasing. So we can close this, and we probably forgot to add our graph to the dragon. Let's see here. Yes, that is because we are adding the gold to the player, but we need to add the gold to the character. So let's go back here. Let's search get corresponding. No, we need to say get character. Get list of oh, wait, he was there. Oh my god. Get character. Here. Get all character entities of the specified player, because in some modes the player can have more than one character. So we can say, and we need to get the first character, because in this mode there's only one character, so we know that it is the first character. And the first is going to be 0, because lists always starts at 0. And now if we connect this, we can save it. And we can save it again. And let's do the upload. And now our gold should be updating, but let's add some more guards first, because I said I would. Let's make maybe actually 3 starting guards. Sounds better. Let me just correctly place them. All right. Now we have 3 guards. Our gold should update whenever the dragon gets hit. All right, you can see our guards are running to the dragon. You can see we are getting a lot of gold. Oh my god. Okay. I'm going to get a few more gold. Such a pain. I don't know what happened. The dragon just teleported for some reason, but let's buy a few level packs. So let's buy 3. Let's buy also 3 more guards. So let's use it before we lose. We are level 7, so it's working. Next, let's get our sword. Let's buy our sword here. Oh my god! Where am I? And the game ends when the dragon is defeated. So there's a few things we could fix, but the main idea is working. So we could maybe change these fences because they are a little bugged. We could maybe fix these walls here. The dragon, we can see that he restored his HP, but he could also have a lot more HP. And the reason he restored his HP is if you go onto his sword icon, we can go into edit details, we could go to combat. And it's probably one of these settings here. So we can say the living battle delay, we can set to 99. We can say this to be, we can increase his radius by a lot. So let's maybe make everything 100. And maybe make this like 20. And let's see if there's any more. And we can leave it like this. And we could add a lot of improvements to this game. So we could add the flame sword attack, but I think that's better for a single video because we could uh, do a lot of things with that flame sword status. So I think I'm going to make a video just for status. We could make more items, some special items. We could maybe make the guards spawn automatically instead of from an item. We could change the map, but the main idea is this. I hope it was useful to learn something, and if you enjoyed, leave a like, something like that. That's it. I'll see you next time.